Welcome back to Fox News on the Hill Live this Sunday morning. You know, this week some local lawmakers continue to push back on the cuts in the federal government. Virginia Congressman Suhas Subramanyam among those, and the Democrats announcing the Cost Relocation Act. That legislation would require a cost-benefit analysis sent to Congress before any federal agency is relocated out of the DMV. The goal, of course, they say, is to ensure that cuts are in the best interest of the taxpayers. We want to welcome back Congressman Subramanyam this morning. Good to see you. So, yeah, this springs out of some of the comments that have been made by the Trump administration about wanting to actually relocate federal agencies out of the area. Your district in Northern Virginia has a lot of federal workers. Some of the colleagues that you were out there with, they also in the DMV have others. What is the goal of this? Is it to put a price tag on what this would cost or actually stop it?
I want to make sure that if they're going to move an agency, that they justify the cost to taxpayers. What's happening and what's happened in the past, the first Trump administration moved a couple of USDA agencies, and they moved them to Kansas City thinking lower cost of living. We're rewarding a red state. That's really what a lot of this is about. And what happened was they actually lost more than 80% of their most qualified workforce, and it was a complete disaster for the functioning of those agencies. So you multiply that across all the agencies in the DMV, which is what they're thinking about doing. That would be a disaster for a country, for all the American people, not just the ones in the DMV.
How much of this has to do with preserving jobs in this area, and how much of it has to do with efficiency for these departments?
It's about both. I mean, right now, moving these agencies, the point is that it's not efficient to move them. I mean, having the agencies next to each other, they can work more collaboratively together. And then we've got the talent right here in the DMV. And so if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? And in this case, we have a lot of talent that's already being fired. Don't make the talent that's remaining leave as well because we're relocating to red states.
Are there some instances, though, where it would be more effective to have a department actually located in the place that is dealing with the issue? For example, Customs and Borders Enforcement right now. Should ICE be moved down to the Texas border? They seem to spend a lot of time down there. Would it necessarily be a better place to have them in Washington, D.C., or down on the southern border where most of that activity is going on?
I mean, my point and the point of the bill is let's find out, right? Let's do the analysis. Again, they thought the USDA going to Kansas City would make more sense, right? But it actually ended up hurting the USDA.
I guess the point here is, though, that it seems that some departments are being targeted for this and others are not.
I don't know, right? I think they're having those discussions right now. There's no transparency in this administration. I'd like to know what they're trying to plan. I'd like to do an analysis before they actually spend taxpayer money in doing this.
Introducing this bill is one thing. Getting it passed and signed to law in another. You're in the minority in the House of Representatives. Are there Republicans that you're talking to about this to make this maybe a bipartisan piece of legislation if it does have a fiscal responsibility element to it?
I mean, you know, protecting taxpayers ought to be bipartisan, right? And I hear that from Republicans all the time. They say that the whole DOGE initiative is about protecting taxpayers. So if they want to protect taxpayers, they should support this bill. And so, you know, the first step in passing a bill is to introduce it, right? And so I'm going to continue to push them. And I think if they start to see the pressure, I mean, we had a special election in Pennsylvania, a plus 15 Trump district, and Republicans lost it, right? They pulled the Elise Stefanik nomination because they're worried about her seat now. So if they see the pressure, if some of these vulnerable members see the pressure, then maybe they'll change, and maybe we'll get those 3 votes we need to pass legislation in the House.
So, Congressman, you've been in the House a couple of months now. Already, you were the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee, Military Affairs and Foreign Affairs Committee. That's a committee that's been going to take a look at what's been going on with the Signal story this past week. Your reaction to this, and not so much about the fact that this information was being sent back and forth between the members, and obviously Jeffrey Goldberg on it as well, too, which revealed it. But the reaction to it when questions about it came up on the Hill this week, there was a Senate hearing, there was a House hearing as well.
Yeah, to be clear, there wasn't really a House hearing. What's ending up happening is...
Well, it was the threats report.
Right.
But it was a major focus of that hearing.
Right, and we have a hearing this week on cyber warfare, but I'm going to bring this up because this is very much a part of cybersecurity and cyber warfare in our military. And what's really, really troubling is this administration, one, is not taking any responsibility or making any sort of actions or projecting that they're going to correct this, right? This is a commercial app, and we're using on their private phones. I mean, this is a huge vulnerability really Iran. The Houthis could have easily been in any of those phones seeing this information, and it put our military at risk. And so the reaction right now is not to correct or fix, it's to double down. And that's really concerning to the Oversight Committee.
Is there an issue with the operation itself or the fact that it was discussed on Signal?
I mean, both. I mean, you're putting the operation at risk. They're saying it was a successful operation. Well, the process and getting there is just as important as the operation itself. And so I don't consider it successful if you're leaking the plans to journalists and third parties on a commercial app using their private phone.
All right. One other item in the news this past week, an MS-13 described leader of the East Coast was arrested. Republicans have been pointing at MS-13 and gang activity as a reason for immigration crackdown. Was this a good move on the part of the administration, or do you still have these concerns?
No, I mean, it's good that we're actually arresting gang members. I think, you know, there's more sort of public-facing press conferences and actual action when it comes to catching criminals. But I'm glad that they actually caught someone, and I'm glad that they're trying to make an effort to catch more because that's a big issue in our community in Northern Virginia.
All right, Congressman, we appreciate you joining us.